you kind of got to play with it to see if the volume's too high, then you get a lot of that feedback. But if it's too low, nobody can hear it. So it's kind of one of those you just got to play with a little bit. But it did. I mean, it sounded good. It's just I don't know if the computer volume was maybe a little bit too high.
All right, I'm turning it down a little bit, and we'll try it again after a bit.
Okay, I turned mine down a little bit also. It may also be that we'd want to mute the microphone on the other end.
That's exactly what I was just thinking too.
Morning, Brent. We were just talking about playing a little bit of Dad's music, and I tried it to see how it comes through, and they said it was a little distorted, so I turned down my speakers, and we'll see how it goes in a few minutes. If you think it's not a good representation, give me a thumbs down or something, and I'll turn it down.
A little bit this evening too.
What?
We could monkey with it a little bit this evening also.
Oh, okay, yeah. On our sibling call.
Yep.
Morning, Lynn and Steve.
Good morning.
Morning, Sylvia. Let's see. Come on.
Both last weekend.
There we go.
It has music playing.
Morning, Roger. North Carolina.
Good morning to you too. Do you have a special password for Presbyterians?
You already found it.
Welcome all. Sylvia is our worship leader today. I would remind friends to, put yourself on mute until it's time to speak, just to keep the feedback down. Are there prayer concerns or anything that should be shared at this time? Well, I'm sure we have many things on our hearts, so let's hold them in God's light and love during this time together. And Sylvia will speak out of the silence that she feels
Well, good morning, friends. As we gather here virtually from the comfort of our homes, I would like to share with you from a gift that our Father left us, and many of you know what that's going to be. I'd like to play from his CD a song, Bless This House. And as I go turn that on, I'm going to show the camera on the roses, some of which he planted. I hope that was not too destructive with his voice. I'd like to start with as we did on Mother's Day, some words from Proverbs, which we mostly assume were written by Solomon. He also has some things to say about being a father. My child, do not forget my teaching, but keep my commands in your heart, for they will prolong your life many years and bring you prosperity. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. My child, preserve sound judgment and discernment. Do not let them out of your sight. They will be life for you, an ornament to grace your neck. Then you will go on your way in safety, and your foot will not stumble. When you lie down, you will not be afraid. It's true that you may not be one who had an earthly father as great as my dad. When we talk about our Father and we really mean God, I find some traits similar. Is that so odd? My Father loved me oh so immensely. I know that God loves me even more intensely. I can still feel the strength in my daddy's hand when I'd reach up. On tiptoe I'd stand to put my little fingers where he could hold them tight as we walked along in the dark of night. Or if in the car I laid down my sleepy head, I felt his strong arms lift and carry me to bed, just as my heavenly Father would do. My dad would rise up in the early morn to milk the cows and plant the corn and provide for me all that I need, not just for me, but for others indeed. He gave us his all from morning to night. He worked to teach us wrong from right. When we gathered at meals, all ate round the table. We laughed and told stories long as we were able and felt like a family with Dad at the head, just like God's loving fellowship, only instead his table is greater than we can fathom. My dad loved each one and was so glad he had them, just as my heavenly Father would do. Unexpected from a farmer, perhaps you might think. His values and work ethic were a valuable link to raising us with different skills and talents. He wanted our lives to be sensibly balanced. He modeled such qualities as listed below, so as we got older, we also could show that we're cheerful and caring, kind and polite. We pitch in as needed to make things work right. Poetry, music, and painting are channels of our spirit. So we'd take time to develop them so others can hear it. He'd say, be smart in your studies and go to college. He wanted his children to be filled with knowledge, just as my heavenly Father would do. Sometimes we'd do things that caused Dad distress. We all had our moments of making a mess. Disappointed as a father would be, I felt humbled and loved when the offender was me. He said, no matter what, you're my pride and joy. Don't give up trying, even though I'm annoyed. I will always love you. We're in this together. And remember, I'm with you in all kinds of weather. He was strong. He was faithful. His trust was true. He sent each of us off in the world to do what is needed to make it a better place, until in eternity we again see his face, just as my heavenly Father would do. So there, I've talked about my father, and it's your time to talk about your fathers. Taking turns, we'd like for you to raise your hand so that Brent can see you, and then when Brent calls your name, you need to unmute and then speak your piece. and then mute again when you're finished. Leave a little bit of space in between, but we don't have a whole lot of time. So be as brief, but as meaningful as you can.
Dan. Can Dan unmute? Dan Barker?
Yes. I'm in my happy place in the garage this morning, and if I can get this aimed just right, behind me over there, you can see a hand plow stuck in a workbench. And on the cross piece of the hand plow, it says, "On to go," which is the remnant of Montgomery Ward. This hand plow my dad used to make the furrows in the garden. And I would walk along behind and we'd plant potatoes. And I remember seeing the backs of his legs and the nasty old leather shoes that he used to garden with. And when he passed and Mom said, "The garden's going to grass," I said, "The hand plow's going to me." And that, I think, is some of the interest that I had in gardening from early on. And I think of that every time I drag out that hand plow.
Norma?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. My father's gift to me, there are two. One was his teaching style, which hopefully I was able to incorporate into critical thinking and using in the classroom. We lived on a farm, of course, and I was his right-hand buddy because I had no brothers, and I spent all my time in the barn or in the field with him. And when we would come back from the hayfield, and I would either be driving a team of horses, a span of mules, and later on the tractor, we'd come to the gate, and he'd get off and open the gate, and he'd say, "Look at the space, the width of the space where the gate was, and think of your hitch, the wagon loaded with loose hay, piled high and wide, and the hay loader that was attached on the back of the wagon." And he'd say, "Look at the space you have, and think of the amount of space you need." He would never tell me, "Do it this way or that way." He would say, "You think about how you need to do to get through the gate without, get through the space without running into posts on either side." So that was a good lesson for me to use critical thinking or how to plan ahead and to be careful, all in the same lesson. The second one is how to remember things. We had neighbors who lived a few miles west, and they had this beautiful home. It looked like a plantation home, and I never could remember their names. And I was in elementary school, and so my father said, "Next time you're on the school bus and you go past there, look at the mailbox." I did, and to this day, it's very clear, Martinell Conrad. That's all.
Go. You can't see it very well, but this is a ball strike counter and outs. My dad was a sportsman from when I was way young. He played softball in the summer about 4 nights a week, played semi-pro football, played basketball, played softball till he was 62. And he gave this to me when I started umpiring when I was 30. So I still use it as a relief device. When I get tense, it's good to just sit and click. But it is, he used it so much, there is still dirt from Westgate Park's ball diamonds ingrained inside of it. John Barry?
I guess the thing that comes to my mind is from not only my father but my grandfather, that, and the stuff that we get in life fades. Things rust, things go away. But the one thing that really stands out in my mind was, no matter what, I mean, my dad's family was not rich. They weren't, powerful politicians or anything, but they were family. And you did what you needed to do for family, despite all their all the things that they did wrong in their life.
Mills.
We seem to be overrun with Mills this morning, don't we? A lot of things that he did that stuck with us, and we, I guess, mentally are critical of others, were little things. Had to do with manners, I guess. You never wear your hat in the house, in anybody's house. They come off at the front door or the back door. Wash your hands and comb your hair before coming to the table. Never call your mother or wife the old lady. He taught patience. And until I was 12, I used his .22 rifle to shoot groundhogs. And we had a hill full of groundhogs, about 200 yards, I guess, from the house or so, down in the woods. And right on the other side of that fence was a cornfield, and the groundhogs were very active and prolific, and they'd eat, I don't know, a quarter of an acre of corn in an afternoon, it seemed. But I was only allowed to take one shell with me. And if once I shot it, I had to walk back to the house and get another. So I learned to be patient and try to be pretty accurate. Otherwise, I'd just waste the shell. When I turned 12, he gave me my first gun, a .22 rifle, single shot, to go down and shoot groundhogs with. And at that point, I could take more than one shell. As much as anything else, I think I felt like I learned optimism and determination from him. I didn't know at the time that we were poor. We thought we were rich. We had acres and cows and pigs and woods and all of those things, and a house full of kids to play with. Even Roger taught us to respect everybody in the family, brothers and sisters, and not be critical of them unless it was to be critical in a helpful way to them. So I thought I learned quite a bit from him.
Megan?
My father thought religion was the opiate of the masses. And, he'd been kind of abandoned by his parents, left with his grandparents. His grandparents were suffering the long, slow decline from affluence after the Depression. There was an enormous undertow of melancholy in his life. And yet, And yet there were so many things that he taught me that were really important. And you know, it's not his job to make me who I am today. It's his job to give me a good springboard. And for me, he did that. And the one thing, I think if I had to say one thing, was that he loved with his whole heart. He loved his grandmother. His grandmother's portrait is still hanging in my house. And he loved my mother, and he loved me. And he tried very hard to love my siblings, but I don't know that he succeeded as well as he did with me. And that's also deeply unfortunate. But he loved without condition. And I think that is a gift that not everybody gets. So thank you.
Dan Bean?
I had to figure out how to unmute that thing. So I have a level here that my father gave me a long time ago. My father liked to build things, and he liked to have us help him. And thinking of the level reminds me of how the scriptures talk about plumb lines and levels. In Isaiah, the prophet says, you know, I will make justice the measuring line and righteousness the level, which I thought was a good lesson from my father. I want to take the liberty of also sharing something from my father-in-law. 50 years ago today, on Father's Day, my father-in-law gave me this hammer. As you can see, it's been abused and it's been taped up. It's a heavy hammer. It's my favorite hammer, and I use it, I'd say, several times a week. Hammers can be used to destroy things, and we read in Judges, it said, but Jael, Heber's wife, took a tent peg and a spike and a hammer and drove the peg into his temple, and he died. So the other day I was taking a building apart with his hammer. So it can be used to sort of destroy things, but also can be used for positive things. And in Jeremiah, we read, they fasten it with nails and with hammers so it will not totter. And I think that's one of the things I learned from my father-in-law and father, was to build things well and build it strong. So it's nice that every time I pick up this hammer, I remember my father-in-law. And when I pick up the level, I remember my father.
I'm going to share something different than what I told Steve that I was. I don't have a lot of memories of my dad, so it's been a challenge to decide what to say. But as I'm sitting here, somewhat encouraged by things that others of you are saying, I'm realizing that one of the things that he gave me was a love of the great outdoors. Mom tried to give me a love of the great outdoors by making me help her in her garden, which was gigantic, and I hated it because it seemed like we were never finished picking peas and beans and whatever. But for my dad, since I was the oldest child, I got to drive the tractor. So I started mowing yards and raking hay and all that kind of stuff for my dad when I was probably 10, something like that. And I still love doing things like that, being outside. And I find that that's really spiritually meaningful and helpful to me to get outside a part of each day and do something in the yard. It fills my spirit some way. And I know that some of that came from Mom, but a lot of it came from Dad too.
I learned a strong work ethic from my father. He was actually as old as my husband's grandmother. So, and my parents were older, obviously, when they had kids. And so I kind of have the values of an older generation. But anyway, he lived on a farm and he would come home from work and would go, he worked for Indianapolis Transit Company as a.
You're back on mute, Dinah.
So did you hear anything I said?
We heard the first part.
My father taught me a good work ethic, and that I was saying that he was the same age as my husband's grandmother. So a lot of how we were raised is kind of from an older generation. So a lot of my values come from that era rather than what most people would, I guess. But anyway, he would work all day. He worked at Indianapolis Transit Bus Company as an electrician, and he would work all day and he would come home and farm all evening. And I remember when I got married and my husband's father would come home from work and sit down, and I just thought, gosh, he's so lazy. Until until I realized, no, that's normal. But you know, as a child, you only know what you learn. So, but he taught me all kinds of things. And as being an electrician, Sarah, my sister, and he had us take electricity in 4-H, and we took a couple of years of it. But during that time, he taught us how to make an extension cord and how to wire a lamp. And Sarah always talks about how she can still do that and remembers it. And she's 4 years older than me, and I don't remember how to do it. But anyway, he taught us all kinds of things on the farm, but probably the strong work ethic is a big one. And our son has inherited that as well, who has his own business and all of that. But anyway.
Friends, we have less than 2 minutes till Zoom shuts us off. Is there anybody else you'd like to share quickly? Steve.
No, my father was not Sherlock Holmes, but he had a sense of curiosity about the world, about people, about how things worked and why they worked that I have inherited. Obviously, I married a curious wife who tells me one thing and a few minutes later says something else. But the sense of curiosity has served me well. It's gotten me in trouble a few times, but I think for the most part, it has served me well. And I appreciate very much the sense of curiosity that I got from my father.
Yes, Roger Mills.
Well, thanks for allowing us to join. We have several memories in common. This is the old coffee pot that used to sit on our stove, and it's amazing that the bottom is not completely shot from all the time that's spent on the burner. I suppose one of my favorite memories or lasting memories of our dad was just riding shotgun with him in the truck when we were out on the way to the field or to get parts or whatever. So suspect you all have memories like that as well. Thanks for letting us in.
Thank you all for joining. Sylvia for being our worship leader and for the sharing of different folks. We'll continue this next week, of course, and hope everyone can join us then. So blessings on you. Have a wonderful week.
Is there any silent worship today?
Yes.
Was there silent worship?
Yes. Yes, it's at 10:15.
The same link?
No, it's a different link. If there's a way to send me an email, send it to me. I'll send you the link. Mine's BrentBill@BrentBill.com.
Oh, that's
Bill
easy
with
to
one
remember.
L.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.